Hello friends, welcome back to the Itsy Guitar YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I lost some footage, so I'm stuck doing a voiceover over a photo to represent one of the coolest amps I've ever had here in my little shop on the channel. Now, I'm not talking about the FAWN one. The FAWN one is unbelievable, and I will have a whole series on that amp. Both of these came in from the same owner. So that's going to be a separate series. This amp, though, the one that looks a bit more like a normal AC30, is in fact not normal and very, very special, as we'll dive into. But I don't have any footage to show the exterior of the amp, unfortunately, so that's why I'm doing a voiceover. But just take it from me, it's one of the cleanest vintage amps I've ever seen, and it's got original blues, just a stellar, incredible example. So with that, let's dive in. Let's check this incredibly rare chassis out here. Okay, it's going to be one of those. Apparently I lost all the footage of me explaining why this is a special amp, so here we go. Voiceover, round two. So long story short, Vox amplifiers, the top boost circuit they're famous for, you know, in an AC30, originally that was created as an add-on card. So it was literally like an expansion card that they would add into the circuit, and they would cut a hole out in the back of the amp, and that's where you'd have the treble and the bass controls. The back panel of the amplifier would not be on the top panel next to the volume controls. This amp is very special because it is a copper top, and it is an integrated top boost, meaning it has the treble and bass controls on the panel itself, but it's still a copper top. There are only about 100 of these amps that exist. They only made about 100. After that, they moved over to the gray panel where it is very common, right? You see those top boost amplifiers, they're all integrated, so they all have the treble and bass controls next to the volume. It was the copper top that it's very, very rare. So they are the same amp on the inside, but it's that really kind of quirky, rare feature of being a copper top and an integrated top boost. That's what makes this amp very special. Like I said, you know, the people argue a little bit about how many are made that have that. It's about 100 or so, to my knowledge, and I actually happen to know what 5 of them, which is pretty crazy. And but this is an example of one of those, incredibly clean, and that makes it very rare and very valuable. So with that in mind, let's move on. Man, this thing looks so nice. Beautiful copper panel. How well you can see, you guys can see it pretty good. Got the typical little marks you get, just like mine has. And one interesting thing to note is it's as if everything is backwards here. The pots, or rather the knobs, are all set up as if, you know, you're viewing from the front of the amp, which I guess makes sense. So basically, you know, the minimum and maximums are all pointed this way versus this way, which like they would from the factory. So somebody just flipped them all around so that I guess it makes more sense when you're playing it. Looking at the transformers real quick, pretty typical with these. They lose the sticker. Kind of see where it used to be. So you don't get to actually see anything really of note. No identifiers unless you have the Wodens. There's really nothing that shows up on them. That happens all the time, so nothing unusual there. Typical kind of surface rust on these chassis, nothing crazy. And yeah, so let's go ahead and take off the slider board and take a look at the circuit. So quick recap of what I see immediately. Obviously, there's been some replaced capacitors here and there, a couple of resistors. Got some funky things like 2 resistors in series here. Must have just not had the right value. Here's a piggyback, 100K. Phase inverter, coupling caps there replaced. Some electrolytics have been replaced, but not all. Kind of bizarre. So we've got this cathode bypass cap here replaced with a radial, which is kind of interesting. A lot of radial swaps in here. You can see the lead was left all the way. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'll bend it so you can see a little bit. Left long for some reason, but then they left this cathode bypass cap, this cathode bypass cap, and this cathode bypass cap. So they replaced one of the 4. I don't know any decent argument of why you would ever replace one of the 4. If you're going to replace one, might as well do all of them. Moving on over here, we got, so again, this is integrated top boost. So we've got the top boost circuit in this kind of section of the amplifier. We can see we've got 2 radial caps here, but check this out. You see that this was never soldered. So this is the ground, which actually goes right here. So this end of the 220Ks, these are the grid leak resistors right here for the part of the phase inverter. So this wire goes underneath and goes over here. So that's This is kind of the phase inverter part of the amp right here. So that's not great. That was never soldered for some reason. And then another radial cap here. This is like a 33 microfarad. It's fine. A couple odd resistors here and there, but otherwise mostly untouched. A couple resistor swaps over here too. You probably can't see. And then we've got obviously this long guy. And it looks like it was just cut really short. And then they had a long extension. Now let's go ahead and shift to the underside. I'm just going to go handheld cam to show you that because it's really hard to get the amp propped that way. So one sec. Looking at the underside, kind of more of the same. We've got two cap swaps, but then they left the original can cap here. So why would you do those two and not that one? I don't know. And then there's these flying grounds, just bare bus wire going over here to this ground point. And then this is a ground point, and they've got it connected there, kind of creating a little ground loop. So bit odd. You can see the output transformer looking good. You can see the power transformer also looking good. Everything looks nice and clean in general. This is a 50 ohm resistor. I bet this thing is biased too hot, so we'll have to check that. And then it's got the original 100 ohm screen resistors and the 1.5K grid stoppers, which are just not a great value for modern wall voltages, modern voltages in the amp because of the higher wall voltage, as well as the modern selection of EL84s. So 100 ohm screen resistors just too small. On my own personal AC30 from 64, I swapped those to 470 ohm, and then for the grid stoppers, I think I did 2.2K or 3K, something like that. So I'll talk to the owner, but we'll likely swap those out as well just to kind of beef it up a little bit, cool the amp down so it's not running so blisteringly hot, and the tubes stand a chance. And then looking over here at the rectifier, I think we'll go ahead and move forward with adding in the safety diodes as well if the owner approves. Just kind of a good solid mod I do to pretty much any amp with a GZ34. Yeah, otherwise looks pretty good down here. So with that, we'll go ahead and talk to the owner, get confirmation, and then start ordering parts. All right, bit of a unique situation here, but we are all done with the 64 integrated top boost AC30. Long story short, this amp came in just for kind of a once over. The owner had it worked on in 2019, thought it was good, but just wanted me to take a look at it while I was looking at the other AC30. Fast forward to now, a bunch of things have transpired, and this amp is now owned by a different friend of mine. I helped kind of broker a deal between them two. And yeah, so this amp is now different friends. And part of the agreement, basically, my role here was to just finish the recap job, which was already, let's call it 85% complete, and then just cool the bias down. Nothing else really. So the new owner, he does tech work himself, so he's going to kind of pick it up from there. So you'll notice we still got like the little orange drop caps here, and you know, some assorted things that normally I would change myself, for example. But that was not part of the scope of work. So let's just run through quickly what we did. So replaced all of the cathode bypass caps. If you recall, we had just one that was replaced with a radial right here. The work was not very good, so I replaced all of those. Added solder here. I'm not sure if I got that on video or not. I did on my phone for sure, but the solder joints from the previous tech left a lot to be desired, including no solder at all right there for that ground connection. I did add just a little bit of solder to some of the previous work, specifically where it looked like it was cracking. And then on the underside here, so if you guys remember what it looked like before, we had flying leads, you know, for the grounds of this cap right here, as well as right here, the bias cap, even though it's already a ground position, kind of creating a little bit of ground loop for some reason. So I ran the ground from here, obviously removed that, and you can see kind of tucked a wire away and ran it up to the preamp side right here, which should give us lower noise. Same thing I did on my AC30. And then we installed a new F&T dual can cap there, correct value, 16 microfarad. Did not use a second ground connection there. And then obviously removed that jumper because that was not needed. Reflowed some solder here that was pretty suspect. And then we did change the bias resistor. So the stock one was a 50 ohm, running about 122% plate dissipation with that sucker. So at 120 volts from the wall. So threw in a 68, which cooled it down quite a bit, but still, still sounds great. Didn't pull back any of the lovely AC30 charm. And yeah, that's kind of the main purview of what we did, outside of just touching up a couple little things. But really, I know the new owner is going to want to dig into this and work his magic, so kind of just left it be. But I did record a little bit of how the amp sounds, just run into the aux box over here. So I'll put that up now, just running through the 3 different channels. You guys can hear it. And yeah, pretty sweet amp. And congratulations to the new owner. This is an incredibly rare piece of Vox history. So really neat for it to kind of technically stay in the family as far as I'm concerned, from one friend to the next. So anyways, there you go. Let's hear it.